I never expected a nightmare at work would lead me to a millionaire doctor. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like every other Monday. My feet ached, dragging me through the hospital halls. The smell of antiseptic was thick in the air, invading my senses. I could feel my heart racing, the pressure building in my chest. I rushed to the nurse's station, but the silence was suffocating. That day, the whispers were louder. People glanced at me, wide-eyed, as if I were carrying a dark secret. My hands trembled, clutching the pale blue folders filled with medical records. Everyone seemed to be on edge, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly, a frantic scream pierced through the stillness. We all froze. My heart thudded in my ears. What was happening? It felt as if time stretched, holding us captive in that moment. Then, like a sudden gust of wind, chaos erupted. Patients overflowed into the hallway, nurses ran with urgency, and the sound of code blue echoed through the air. I quickly turned, my instincts kicking in. That's when I saw him. The millionaire doctor. Dressed impeccably in expensive scrubs, he moved with an unnatural grace, his presence commanding attention. His eyes locked onto mine, and the world fell away. It was eerie how everything about him felt wrong and yet, mesmerizing. Rumors twisted around him. Was he a genius, or was he hiding something darker? I had heard stories, a secret past, a tragic loss that shaped him. People believed he was cursed. I couldn't shake the feeling that fate had thrown us together for a reason. Amidst the chaos, I sensed a spark between us. It was electric and terrifying. Did he know about my struggles? My sleepless nights, my lonely apartment? I suddenly wanted to scream for help, to explain the weight of my existence. But I stood frozen, caught in his haunting gaze, then, right before my eyes, the lights flickered. An ominous hum filled the air. My breath quickened. Was this our cue to fight or flee? Just as I braced myself, a warning alarm pierced through the chaos, and all eyes darted around in panic. The world seemed to shift on its axis. And that's when I knew this wouldn't just be any day at work. I felt the ground beneath me shake. Would this nightmare be the beginning of everything changing? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The chaos swirled around us like a tornado, and in that storm of sounds and sights, I felt both alarmed and strangely alive. The millionaire doctor, this enigmatic figure in my peripheral vision, was caught in the fray, a conductor attempting to orchestrate a symphony amidst a cacophony. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape this madness, but a stronger force tethered me to the scene. Stay here, help with the supplies. He called over the growing clamor, his voice sharp yet calming. Surprised by the authority laced in his tone, I obeyed, my hands moving on autopilot as I grabbed bandages and 4 bags off the shelves. Time slipped away, becoming irrelevant in the urgency of the moment. As we worked side by side, there were brief glances shared, flitted sparks that hinted at something deeply personal. His brow furrowed with determination, his face lighting up in brief moments of relief whenever we made progress. The fear that had surreptitiously weaved itself around my heart slowly began to loosen its grip. I found myself laughing at a darkly witty comment he made, surprising even myself with how easily I could connect with him amidst the horror. Hours felt like days as we scrambled through the madness, our presence a reassurance to the overwhelmed staff. The weight of dread never fully dissipated, but with each passing moment, I felt an ember of hope glow within me. Maybe, just maybe, I could make a difference, if only for today. As the commotion began to fade, and the shrieks of patients turned into shakier breaths, I found a moment to breathe. My gaze darted to the doctor, who was now leaning against the wall, fatigue etched into the lines of his face. I had seen doctors in those same worn-out positions before, too tired to lift their heads, but he seemed different. There was a shadow shrouding him, an unspoken despair lurking behind his attentive facade. "What's your name?" I found myself asking, curiosity replacing my inner turmoil. It was a simple question, but it hung heavy in the air, begging for significance. "Carter," he replied, his voice a soft rumble but still commanding. "Why do they call you a curse?" I pressed, my heart racing with the daring of such a question. It felt wrong, yet essential to bridge the chasm between us. That he straightened up, the answer weighing heavy on his shoulders. "Because I lost someone once," he murmured, his gaze drifting somewhere far beyond us. A patient I couldn't save, the confession, born from that haunted space, threaded between us, and I saw a flicker of vulnerability behind his polished exterior. I hesitated, my heart aching for a man who bore the burden of his past so bravely. "Sometimes it's not your fault," I whispered, unsure whether I was speaking to him or to the residue of guilt that clung to me like a shadow. "Is it, though?" He shot back, pain lacing his voice. His eyes flared with intensity, and I felt my heart clench as the weight of unhealed wounds bled into the room. When you're trained to save lives, every failure feels like a personal betrayal. Before I could respond, a distant alarm rang out, jolting both of us back to reality. It was a stark reminder that this nightmare wasn't over. As we turned to head back to the nurse's station, the ground shook again, a tremor that rattled my core. "This is not just a typical emergency," Carter said, worry creasing his brow. "I need you to trust me." That I nodded, the pulse of anxious energy surging through my veins. As I gazed into those piercing eyes, I felt the fusion of fear and something else. Something tethered us, roots intertwining amidst the chaos. Together, we raced to the next emergency, the adrenaline coursing through us as we approached what seemed an insurmountable challenge. But then, I noticed a figure standing at the end of the corridor, a girl, not much older than a child, with wide eyes and a hollow expression. "Help! Please!" she cried, pointing towards a curtain where shadows moved erratically. Every instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong, and just as Carter and I reached her, the atmosphere shifted, a sense of dread washing over us as a familiar face emerged from behind the curtain, one I never expected to see. My breath hitched, and reality blurred as recognition crashed over me. It was my sister, the one who vanished without a trace years ago, her face paled and drawn. As I rushed toward her, questions multiplied in my mind. What was she doing here? And why did this nightmare feel far from over? The air hung thick with the tension of the moment, a suffocating mixture of disbelief and terror. My sister stood before me, a specter from my past, and yet it felt like I was looking into the depths of a warped mirror. Memories flooded back in a haze of color and sound, laughter in sunlit rooms, shadows when the laughter faded. "Is that really you?" I gasped, my voice piercing through the cacophony of hospital chaos. I reached out, but the space between us felt 10 miles wide, an abyss carved by lost years and silent screams. "Where have you been?" Her eyes, once bright with wonder, were clouded with tales untold. She glanced toward Carter, then back to me, her lips trembling. "Two don't have time to explain. They're coming. You have to help me." The urgency in her voice shattered something within me, a protective instinct igniting. Yet dread pooled in my stomach, a gnawing fear that whatever had pulled her back into my life would unravel the fragile threads holding my own sanity intact. "What do you mean, they?" I asked breathlessly, glancing at Carter, who had transformed into a formidable presence beside me, a guardian armor clad in medical scrubs and unyielding determination. "Please," she begged, stepping closer, her breath hitching in desperation. "It's not safe. They know where I am. They won't stop until they find me. And they won't stop with me." Carter's intensity shifted. He studied her, circling us like a hawk assessing a prey. "You need to explain, now," he demanded, though his voice was laced with an oddly soothing timbre. "We can't provide help unless you tell us what you're facing." Just then, the ground beneath our feet rumbled again, sending a jolt of panic reverberating through the corridor. The lights flickered ominously, casting a strobe of shadows that danced uncomfortably close to the edges of my sister's reality. "There's no time," she insisted, desperation etched upon her features like a tattoo of anguish. "I can't tell you everything here. It's too dangerous. I just know I need to get out." "What did you get involved in?" I pressed, feeling the fragments of our long-buried past twist into an unrecognizable knot, each thread whispering secrets we had never been meant to unearth. "The organization," she managed in hurried breaths. "They were after me when I disappeared. I thought I escaped, but they've been searching for me. I can feel it." Thea clatter echoed down the hallway, drawing our attention. A throng of doctors and emergency responders rushed past, faces set with focused grimness. In their wake, the sounds of monitors blaring and patients wailing returned, a cruel reminder of our surrounding reality. Carter exhaled sharply, then turned his attention back to my sister. "You need a safe place, and fast. Come with us." The resolve poured through him, and for a moment, as he risked himself for her, I felt a fierce appreciation bloom in my chest. The chaos around us faded slightly, dimmed by the hope that perhaps he was right. Maybe we could find a sanctuary amidst this storm. Just as we began to move, my sister froze, eyes wide. "Wait. No, don't. You can't trust him." The warning burst forth like a shriek from deep within. My heart sank as her words coursed through me like poison. A look of confusion rippled across Carter's features as he turned back to face us. "What are you talking about? I can't explain," she exclaimed, tears pooling in her eyes. "You have to believe me. They've been watching him, too. They know." Instinct twisted around me like a vice. A familiar terror emerged, one I thought I had buried. What if she was right? I searched Carter's eyes, looking for betrayal, but found only confusion and an underlying anger. I sensed his struggle against doubt, an internal conflict that mirrored my own. "Enough." Carter snapped, commanding the moment. "If there's a threat, we cannot linger. Whatever is happening, we need to keep moving." I nodded, but my mind was a whirlwind of uncertainty. Could I trust him? Or was he another layer of betrayal, another cruel twist of fate in a series of events that seemed designed to lead me deeper into darkness? As we turned to make our escape, a cold breath of air swept through the corridor, chilling my spine and twisting my heart with a sense of foreboding. The sensation of being watched returned tenfold, and with it, the sense that the nightmare had just begun. Behind us, shadows lurked, figures shrouded in darkness, concealed in the blink of an eye. My sister's breath quickened as she grabbed my arm, her grip like a vice, and I felt her fear seep into me. "Run!" she shouted, and without thinking, I burst into motion, Carter beside me, but a lingering question hollowed in my chest. What was this truth that could unravel us both? And then, in a moment of clarity amidst the turmoil, I realized we were not just running from the shadows, we were running toward the heart of our entwined nightmares, and the revelation of who we could truly trust would soon be at the tipping point. The frantic pounding of my heart echoed in my ears as we fled through the stark, fluorescent-lit hallways of the hospital, the urgency of my sister's warning driving my every step. Carter's imposing figure kept pace beside me, his focus sharpened with a fierce determination that both soothed and unsettled me. Every instinct screamed for caution, yet, with my sister's vice-like grip pressing into my arm, I felt a gut-wrenching drive to protect her. "Where do we go?" I gasped, fear propelling my feet faster than I thought possible. The sterile scent of antiseptics burned my nostrils, mingling with the metallic taste of adrenaline on my tongue. I knew we were racing against more than just the fleeting moments of safety, we were challenging the claws of a dark past that threatened to tear us apart. "Follow me." Carter barked as he swerved left, darting into a side corridor. I hesitated for a fraction of a second, heart caught between loyalty to my sister and the inherent distrust blooming towards the man who had sworn to help us. But when I saw the raw terror reflected in my sister's eyes, I could not bear to linger. We wound our way through a maze of hallways, the sounds of chaos fading with every twist and turn, yet I knew it was far from over. Shadows and whispers trailed close behind, an inevitable conclusion to the fears that had been resurrected from the graves of our past. I could feel the pulse of something sinister in the air, a sense of being pursued by a darkness I had tried to forget. Stop. My sister snapped suddenly, pulling me to a halt. This isn't the way. We need to hide. Her voice held a gravity that demanded attentiveness, and it jolted me back to the reality of our situation, a moment of lucidity amidst a storm of confusion. Where? I spluttered, glancing around desperately. The long, narrow corridor offered little comfort. The stark white walls seemed to close in, forming an oppressive cocoon. There. She pointed toward a door at the far end, slightly ajar. My stomach churned. It led to a utility room, a dark chamber of forgotten supplies, a perfect hideaway, but with every heartbeat, the stakes rose. We dashed toward it, the door creaking under the pressure of desperate fingers. Slipping inside, we paused briefly, hearts racing in unison. Silence enveloped us, though outside the sounds of footsteps and urgent whispers proximate, a storm brewing beyond our sanctuary. Instinctively, I pressed a finger to my lips, hinting for everyone to remain quiet. That I can't believe this is happening, I whispered, clenching my sister's hand. Why now? After all these years, she stared at the ground, tears threatening to spill over. I thought I was safe. I thought it was over. I was wrong. The hollow desolation in her voice carved into my heart, reminding me of all that she had faced alone. Why would they come after you again? I probed gently, the need for clarity a burning ember in my chest. Pieces of a puzzle began to form, dark memories coated with a veneer of horror and silence. That I got too close to the truth. Too many people knew about the organization and what they were capable of. I thought they had lost interest once I disappeared, but they were only waiting. Waiting for the right moment. She looked at me, anguish etched deeply into her features. And now they'll stop at nothing to silence me, for good. At that moment, as the weight of her words sank into me, a knock sounded at the door. My breath hitched, my sister's grip tightening painfully around my wrist. Carter stepped closer, dropping into a protective stance. Stay behind me, he warned, his voice low and steady. I at them. I whispered, a flood of panic washing over me. I don't know, he admitted, uncertainty flickering across his brow. But we can't afford to be found here. The knock sounded again, more impatient this time. Hey! Is anyone in there? We need to check the supply closet. The voice was laced with authority, demanding, yet tinged with worry. A rush of adrenaline surged through me, stirring the instincts that had lain dormant. What if they know? What if they know about her? I shivered. Fear tangible in the musty room. Carter's gaze met mine, muscles tense, as he weighed our options. Let me handle this. Just stay put. Before I could protest, he slipped into view of the door, pushing it ajar just enough to peer outside. What's going on? He asked, feigning nonchalance as if he belonged. The silhouette of a nurse emerged, her expression a blend of annoyance and concern. We need to check the supplies for the incoming trauma unit. Just a quick look. We're in the middle of a crisis here, right? Carter replied smoothly, but it's locked. It's probably best if you suddenly. My sister's body stiffened, her eyes wide with dread. They're coming, she gasped, just as the door swung wider and another figure emerged from the shadows. This one a security guard, tall and imposing, with a glint of recognition in his eyes. Hey! He barked, eyes scanning the room. What are you doing here? You need to leave this area. In that split second, horror flooded my veins as he turned his gaze from Carter to my sister, recognition dawning like a storm cloud. She's here. Call for backup. The urgency in his voice screamed alarm bells, intensifying the chaos spiraling in my mind. Run. Carter shouted, the command echoing through the confined space, but it felt like a desperate plea against a tide of certainty that was already over our heads. That we sprinted, each heartbeat echoing in my ears, only to be met with the bone-chilling reality of fleeing into uncertainty, back towards our fractured past, as shadows closed in, ready to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. What had I unleashed? What truths awaited us in those moments that defined our every choice, now looming like dark specters, unyielding in their pursuit? The answer hung between us, heavy with dread, promising that the lines of trust would soon blur, and the terrifying question of loyalty would be put to the ultimate test. In the frantic rush, the sterile corridors became a blur as fear propelled us forward. We barely slowed down as we passed the faint glimmer of nurses hustling past, oblivious to the storm crashing in our wake. My heart pounded an erratic rhythm against my ribcage, each thundering beat a reminder of the gravity of our situation, and every shadow felt like a phantom from our past, watching and waiting, "Turn this way." Carter called back, veering into another hallway just before the sounds of chaos could catch up. My sister and I followed, breathing heavily as we ducked behind what appeared to be a small seating area meant for weary families. The moment we huddled behind it, the echoes of footsteps faded slightly, but the din outside was still enough to drown out my thoughts. "Please just breathe," I murmured to my sister as I glanced around, desperately seeking a way out. "We're okay, we're together." But deep inside, doubt clawed at me, whispering that together might not be enough this time. "That I can't believe this is happening," she whispered back, her voice trembling, the weight of our shared history evident in her fragile demeanor. "It should have ended. Why didn't I just stay hidden?" "You did what you thought was right," I reassured her, but my own certainty began to waver. If only I could solidify that belief within myself. The moments dragged on, heavy with both silence and the unnamed anxieties that swirled around us. Then, unexpectedly, a gentle touch graced my shoulder, an unfamiliar warmth that drew my attention. A nurse sat down beside me, her scrub stained with the wear of a demanding shift, her eyes soft with concern. "That I saw you three running. Are you okay?" she asked, her voice low but soothing, almost like a balm to the panic. "You shouldn't be here, it's not safe." Her gaze darted down the hallway as if the shadows themselves might pounce. We're just hiding," I replied, surprised by the sudden impulse to confide in her. "Please, we just need a moment." "Are you in trouble?" There was kindness in her tone, mixed with an urgency that told me she understood the gravity of the situation. "It's complicated," I breathed, glancing at my sister, whose face was a mix of fear and yearning for the assurance this nurse offered. "We're being pursued, not here," the nurse said firmly, her resolve rising as she reached for my hand. "You have to get away from this place. They don't care who gets hurt if they find you." A wave of gratitude washed over me at her openness. "Can you help us?" I asked, my heart hammering, a small glimmer of hope igniting in the void of despair. She nodded. "We can't stay here, it's too dangerous. Follow me, but keep your heads down." The nurse led us through a series of back hallways, her confident pace pulling us along, a thread of hope threading through the knots of worry that tightened in my chest. As we moved, I took a moment to glance back at Carter, who kept his protective stance, guarding our retreat, his expression a fierce mix of protection and uncertainty. Just as we reached a hidden exit, the nurse held up her hand abruptly, her expression shifting as she pulled us behind a pile of equipment. "Wait," she whispered. The muted sounds of footsteps echoed closer, and my heart sank back into desperation as the urgency of our situation returned. A group of security officers marched past, their voices raised in clipped command. "Check every floor," one ordered. "She has to be somewhere close." The nurse pressed her back against the wall, exhaling softly but resolutely. "Well, just wait a moment," she replied, with a tirade of intensity in her eyes that spoke volumes of her desire to protect us. Each moment stretched painfully, and I felt my chest tightening with fun at just for us but for the woman who had chosen to help us in a world so full of horror. At last, when the footsteps faded, the nurse gestured that it was safe to continue, and we slipped out into a narrow stairway. "Please, you need to hurry," she urged, glancing back toward the door. "Head down into the parking garage. Don't stop until you reach the exit." "Thank you," I murmured, overwhelmed with emotion as we rushed past her, my sister close behind me. We descended the steps, each level revealing the daunting darkness of a maze winding beneath the hospital, scented with the faint hint of grease and tires. The sound of rain pattered softly against the overhead garage roof, a tranquil contrast to the chaos we had left behind. In a moment of silence as we caught our breath at the bottom, I turned to my sister, her features pale and drawn. "Do you believe we can escape this?" Her eyes flickered, a mixture of hope and terror, illuminated for just a moment by a distant flickering light. "I don't know, but we have to try," she replied, brushing back her hair. "I won't let them take me again." As we crawled into the darkness of the parking garage, a feeling of familiarity washed over me. It was the same feeling I had when embarking on a journey fraught with both peril and promise. But nothing could prepare us for the sight that awaited us just a few seconds later. Within the shadows of an unlit corner. A figure loomed, cloaked in darkness, as the soft light spilled from the open exit beyond. And when that figure stepped forward, clarity struck like lightning. That face, familiar yet twisted by time, held an unbearable weight of secrets that knotted within my stomach. "Hello," he said, his voice like serrated glass. "It's been a while, hasn't it? I've been waiting for you." The realization crashed around us with the force of a tidal wave. This was not just our past seeking vengeance, this was someone who knew far too much, instilling fear that could unravel everything we had fought so desperately to protect. The air felt electric with tension as I stood frozen, pulling my sister closer behind me, desperately searching for an escape route amidst the shadows that swirled around us. That voice, cutting through the noise of the rain overhead, instantly transported me back to a time I wished to forget, a time that had laid the foundation for the fears that now enveloped us. "Don't listen to him," I murmured to my sister as shivers crept down my spine. I forced myself to meet the eyes of the figure emerging from the darkness. "We can get out of here. Stay calm." "Ah, the brave one," he continued, a sly smile curling at the edges of his mouth. "Always so eager to play hero." He took a step closer, his form illuminated by the dim light spilling in from the exit, revealing the same sharp features I had once known in another life. "But this isn't a game anymore, is it? You shouldn't have come back. Who are you?" I shot back, fighting my instinct to flee from his presence. The memories clawed their way back, a cacophony of laughter, whispers laced with betrayal, and a final, gut-wrenching realization that had sent us spiraling into darkness. He chuckled darkly at my hesitation, the sound echoing in the hollow expanse. "You really don't remember? Even after all that's happened?" He paused, an unsettling glimmer dancing in his eyes. "I'm the one who kept you safe when you thought everyone was against you. The one who held the keys to your fate." "Keys?" I echoed, my breath hitching in disbelief. "Keys to what?" "This nightmare, your past, a legacy, and the truth you're so desperately trying to escape," he replied, his words dripping with malice and seduction. "You think you've been running from them, but you have it all wrong. They followed you here, not to hunt you down but to welcome you back. To show you the family you've forsaken." "Family?" Carter hissed, stepping forward protectively, the tension in the air thickening. "What family? There's nothing left for us." "You're lying, am I?" His gaze shifted toward Carter, and something dark and powerful flickered across his expression. "Time has ways of revealing truths we wish to bury." I knew the weight of those words, the burden of truths heavily disguised. They were my family's truths, stitched with lies and manipulation. Fear curled tight in my chest. I could sense my sister's apprehension, the way her body tensed beside me, and a primal urge to shield her ignited within. "Enough of this!" my sister shouted, breaking the enchantment of his words, her voice ringing with defiance that echoed against the cold concrete walls. "We're not here for you, and we're definitely not going back." The figure wavered for a moment, a crack in his calculated demeanor. The intensity shifted palpably, and I could see the cracks within his confident facade. "Then you haven't truly left," he countered coldly, advancing even closer, as if the very air between us crackled and popped with unfulfilled promises. "You have everything to gain if you stop fighting, just like I did. Hiding behind your lies won't protect you," Carter injected sharply. "We choose our battles, and our family isn't who they think they are. We've forged our own path away from that existence. You're nothing but a puppet." The disdain on his face twisted into rage, his voice rising above the steady drumming of the rain on the roof. "You little fools. You don't know what you've dismissed. It is you who make this choice, it is you who harness the power to reclaim what is yours. You have a pact waiting for you." My heart raced, the storm within me conflicting emotions of anger, fear, and a flickering hope begging to be released. Could this really lead to a form of redemption? Was there truth buried in his words? "Let us go," I demanded, grounding my voice with more force. "We don't owe you anything." He stepped aside, a barren smile etched on his features. "So brave, but you'll wish to have listened. Consider this a friendly reunion." As we edged away, adrenaline propelling each step toward the exit, I glanced back one last time. Perhaps it was the flicker of doubt in his eyes, or the pulse of vulnerability masked by ambition. Something told me this wasn't the end. When we burst through the exit into the rain-soaked world outside, the chaos around us almost felt like a curtain lifting. The sound of sirens crescendoed, a reminder of how close we were to danger still lingering behind. Suddenly, a realization hit me. As we moved into the night, the truth we were trying so hard to escape was rising to greet us, at the edges of our minds pulsing like a heartbeat. "Where do we go?" My sister's voice trembled beside me. "Somewhere far from here," I whispered. But before I could take another step, a figure appeared at the exit behind USA uniformed officer, their silhouette sharp against the light. "Stop right there." The officer shouted, and our hearts dropped. We spun around in unison just as our eyes met the haunting familiarity of that darkened doorway once more. In this tight-knit weave of escape, betrayal lingered like poison, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the real nightmare was only just beginning. With my heart racing and my breath coming in shallow gulps, I felt the fear radiate off of Carter like waves crashing against the shore. The officer's voice echoed menacingly in the rainy night, but I couldn't seem to process anything beyond the urgency pulsing in my veins. "Please. We didn't do anything," I burst out, my voice rising with desperation. The rain pooled at our feet, soaking the ground, mixing with the adrenaline that coursed through me. I wanted to scream for help, to make someone understand who we were and what we had just escaped from, but my words fell flat against the weight of reality. The officer took another step forward, and I instinctively pulled Carter closer, my fingers clutching her arm tightly as if I could shield her from the storm that threatened to engulf us. "You need to leave us alone," I demanded, my voice trembling from a mix of defiance and terror. He paused, the line of his jaw tightening as he regarded us with a mixture of suspicion and something warmer, perhaps concern. I leaned into the cautious hope that flickered within. "You don't understand. We're not dangerous. We're just trying to find safety." "Safety from what?" he asked flatly, and at that moment, the world around us faded as every fear I had encountered came rushing back in a cacophony. The figure in the shadows, his chilling words that wrapped around my throat, and the deep-rooted secrets that still haunted me, truth I had long tucked away. Carter stepped forward, her voice steadying the storm within me. "From our past," she said, her face pale but resolute. "You wouldn't understand. We've made mistakes, but we can't go back. That man, he's dangerous." With an intensity one hadn't expected, the officer's expression softened. "If you're in trouble, you need to tell me now." "I can help," he said, his voice dropping in volume, morphing into something gentler. "But I can't protect you if you don't trust me." For a moment, hope flared brighter than the rain that stung our skin. But tucked behind it was a nagging hesitation. Who could we trust? The figure from the shadows had played on our vulnerabilities, weaving manipulations that bound our choices tightly. Could this officer be pulling us into another trap, or was he a lifeline amidst the chaos? "Please, we don't," I started, but before I could finish my thought, a deafening crash resonated in the distance, shattering the quiet. I turned toward the sound, dread pooling in my stomach. It echoed through the air, reminiscent of a rushed reply to fears we had left simmering in the shadows. "Stay close." The officer yelled over the din, instinctively recognizing the danger that lurked beyond the remnants of our fragile hope. That I snatched Carter's hand, pulling her toward the side of the building as the sound of sirens grew closer, converging like wolves on our scent. Time slowed as if the universe had conspired to give space to our racing thoughts. Behind us, the dark figure lingered at the exit, watching, waiting, a predator surveying its prey. "Please, we have to go now," I urged, moving past the officer, who seemed ready to follow but glanced back at the entrance as if weighing something heavy on his conscience. My heart sank as the figure from the shadows remained a mere shadow, the uncertainty of his intentions sending a stab of fear through me. "I'll cover your escape," he shouted suddenly, and before we could comprehend his words, he dashed toward the entrance, blocking our pursued embodiment of our nightmares. I had never believed in saviors, but for one fleeting moment, I thought of him that way, a bright light flickering amidst an ever-deepening void. Carter squeezed my hand, her expressive eyes filled with uncertainty. "What do we do?" she breathed, looking between the officer and the darkness beyond. "Trust him," I murmured. It was a whisper, barely audible over the thumping of my heart. "Well, figure it out once we're out of here." We turned to run, feet pounding against the slick concrete as we navigated through the downpour, searching for a refuge in the storm. The rain blurred our path, mixing with the salt of tears I refused to let flow freely, tears of loss, of pain, and of the memories that danced cruelly in the corners of my mind. But as we reached the end of the alley, a figure stepped from the shadows, a familiar silhouette, a ghost I thought I had left behind. My breath caught as I recognized the figure with a start, the world around me growing dimmer as the memories surged back like a tidal wave. "Going somewhere?" he taunted, a smirk playing on his lips that sent shivers racing down my spine. In the flickering streetlight, the embers of a twisted reunion glinted in his eyes, and I froze, knowing full well that this was neither a simple encounter nor just an unfortunate twist of fate. "Let her go!" Carter shouted, panic enveloping her voice as she moved closer instinctively, ready to confront whatever darkness loomed ahead. But with every ounce of fear gripping my heart, I recognized the truth in that moment: there would be no escape until we faced what lingered behind the veil, the hidden truths that threatened to unravel us utterly. "Did you really think you could escape?" he continued, his voice wrapping around us as if the very air had thickened with his deceit. "You've come back to your family, whether you like it or not." And in that storm-drenched night, as thunder rumbled ominously above us, the realization dawned: some truths would always find their way home. As the clock of fate ticked mercilessly forward, I knew this was merely the beginning of a far more sinister journey. The downpour drummed relentlessly against the pavement, drowning out the fear that threatened to swallow me whole. I stood pinned under the weight of his gaze, the figure in the shadows: Nathan, the brother I had thought I'd escaped forever. The smirk on his face spoke volumes. He was the guardian of our shared past, the architect of the nightmares that had followed me into the night. "Don't listen to him," I shouted, my voice cracking as I struggled to maintain control. "He's lying." Carter's grip tightened on my hand as hope flickered like a weak flame, threatening to be extinguished by the tempest of our reality. "Is he? Or are we simply running away again?" she evaluated, her eyes locked on Nathan as if he held secrets she could unravel with a single gaze. "Do you really think you can run from your blood? You can't just forget everything," Nathan taunted, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "What's the point of all this, really? Hiding? You'll always be one step away from the truth, and I'm the only one who can set you free." I spat back, my heart racing as rage bubbled beneath the surface. "You think holding us hostage to family secrets is freedom?" The truth of my upbringing was cast in shadows, but in this moment, every dark memory crashed into the present, a reminder of the grip he could still exercise over me. "Enough with the theatrics," he snapped, stepping closer, the puddles reflecting his menacing figure. "You've dragged her into this, and it's only going to hurt her more. I just want to help you remember your place. Family comes first, doesn't it?" Behind him, I caught fleeting shadows of the officer still confronting the darkened entryway. His determined stance mirrored the desperation pooling in my chest. I felt an overwhelming tug at my mind. What if walking back into Nathan's world meant dragging Carter into the horrors I had barely escaped? Carter stepped forward, shifting her body to shield me, her expression hardened. "We aren't going back, Nathan. We've fought too hard to come this far. You have no idea what we've been through." Her bravery sparked something inside me, a flicker of resolve against the tide of fear. Nathan glanced at Carter with surprise etched on his features, as if encountering a worthy adversary for the first time. "Oh, I know exactly what you've been through. And I also know you're too naive to see the reality of your choices. You think you can just move on with her, don't you?" "Enough. I yelled. The storm raged around us, wind whipping my hair like tendrils of worry, but in that moment, clarity emerged through the chaos. You don't control me anymore. I'm not the frightened girl you once knew. He paused, his eyes narrowing as if assessing the truth of my words. Oh, but that girl is still in there, he said, his tone shifting to one of cold calculation. And I can bring her out. All it takes is one little push. Lightning flashed overhead, sending a jolt through the air as if the universe was putting us on notice. It felt surreal, standing there, on the precipice of everything I had tried to rebuild. Could I truly protect Carter from the storm he unleashed, the twisted family ties that demanded we buckle under their weight? As the rain continued to fall, I made my choice. I knew the only way out was to confront my past, not to run from it, but to face it head-on. You don't scare me anymore, I said, my voice steady but my heart racing beneath layers of doubt. It took Nathan a heartbeat to respond, a wicked grin spreading, revealing the childhood bond twisted into something grotesque. Oh, sweet sister, you're mistaken if you think this is all just a game. He shifted his gaze to Carter and back to me. All I have to do is reveal the secret, and you'll see the truth in its rawest form. Are you ready for that? I felt a shiver dance down my spine, the storm reflecting the turmoil swirling within. The notion that a word from him, a revelation, could peel back our carefully crafted lives within moments chilled my bones to the core. Carter's anxious gaze met mine, laced with determination yet tinged with fear. Don't you dare, I warned, more to myself than to him. You want take her down with you. He tilted his head, considering me with a childlike glee, as if calculating the impact of every syllable. Careful, Tessa. You're standing on the edge of a cliff, and I hold the key to what waits at the bottom. That was if cliff he dangled before me, a precarious invitation to everything I'd fought to escape. The balance of power shifted, and suddenly, I felt the fragile hope dissipate, replaced with a foreboding sense of doom. Before I could gather my thoughts, Nathan's phone chimed sharply, cutting through the tension. He glanced at the screen, and an unreadable expression crossed his face. Looks like our family reunion will have to be postponed, he said, a hint of irritation in his voice. But he'll be around, Tessa. Always watching. You can't forsake family. Remember that. With a flare of irritation and apprehension, he turned and melted into the rain, leaving behind an unsettling quiet that engulfed us. Carter's hand was still in mine, our breaths ragged from the emotional storm, but uncertainty loomed like dark clouds hanging overhead. Are you okay? She asked, searching my eyes for answers amidst the chaos. That I don't know, I confessed, fear clenching my heart anew as the familiar sense of dread returned, weighty and suffocating. But I promise you this, we're not going to let him win. As we took a step back toward the flickering streetlight, a noise caught my ear, footsteps in the distance, echoing ominously as if the night itself was trembling in anticipation. I turned, and just as the realization hit me, a figure emerged from the shadows, familiar yet unsettling, sending another wave of fear crashing over me. Looks like I'm not the only one who hasn't forgotten. The voice slithered through the air, and my heart stuttered. There, drenched but standing tall, was another ghost from the past, familiar, troubled, and most terrifying of all, tied to everything I had sought to leave behind. Do you remember me? The newcomer asked, their tone laced with an unsettling familiarity that sent chills racing up my spine. With a flood of confusion besieging my mind, I realized the nightmare was far from over. It had only just begun. The distant echo of the stranger's voice seemed to fracture the fragile peace we'd just obtained. Carter's hand tightened around mine, her breath hitching slightly. I felt a wave of panic claw its way up my throat, fighting against reason. The shadows danced around us, swirling with the specter of my past, and I momentarily lost my footing as memories intertwined with the present, blurring the lines between who I had become and who I once was. Who are you? I stammered, squinting to catch the details of a face that was both hauntingly familiar and completely foreign. The streetlight flickered, illuminating a face etched with the details of sorrow and regret. The stranger stepped forward, the rain sliding off their slick jacket, pooling on the ground like everything I had tried to escape. It's been a long time, Tessa. Their voice was low, a mix of affection and sadness. You probably don't remember me, but I think of you often. recognition sparked deep within me, a flicker of a memory, someone from the old days who had watched with silent understanding as Nathan played his twisted games. Max. I finally breathed out, the name barely escaping my lips, laden with the weight of years. He nodded, the corner of his mouth twisting into a semblance of a smile, though his eyes carried shadows that mirrored my own. Yes, it's me. I've been looking for you ever since you left. The words hung in the air, electric and suffocating. The unsaid urgency pressed against my chest, forcing me to confront all that had been left unsaid. Why? Why now? I retorted, the flickering bravado I pretended to maintain trembling under the weight of this revelation. I wanted to warn you. Things are darker than they seem. Nathan isn't the only one who's been searching for you, he said, his gaze darting nervously toward the shadows that cloaked our surroundings. He has allies who don't just want to recall the past, they want to erase it entirely. And they'll stop at nothing. Carter's grip on me tightened, her eyes scanning the street, half expecting an enemy to spill forth from the darkness. What are you talking about? She asked sharply, her protective demeanor juxtaposed with the vulnerable footing we found ourselves on. Power doesn't just come from blood, Tessa, Max continued, his voice imbued with urgency. There are people in our family who want you gone. I couldn't let them find you before I had the chance to. Suddenly, a cacophony of shouting erupted in the distance, the voices buoyed by fear and panic. The world felt as though it were closing in. My heart raced as I instinctively turned toward the sound, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Is it them? I asked, my voice trembling as I confronted the chilling notion of a facade crumbling to reveal something incomprehensible sauntering from the dark. Max's gaze darted to the shadows once more, panic spilling across his features. Not yet, but we don't have much time. You need to trust me, Tessa. Nathan isn't just a brother in the shadows, he's a pawn in something much larger than you can comprehend. Tension crackled in the air, my brain spinning with the implications of his words. Trust you? You show up out of nowhere after years of silence, and now you want me to trust you? You have no idea what Nathan can do. I know enough, he said, desperation creeping into his tone. Look, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help. You don't have to face this alone. Together we can. The shouts grew closer, and I took a step back, dragging Carter with me. Listen, I don't know if you can keep me any safer than I am now. Whoever is coming doesn't need Nathan, they just need your presence here to signal that I've returned to the fold. You don't understand what you're walking into. Max's eyes softened, anchoring me with an unexpected sincerity. You think I don't get it? I lost people too, Tessa. I should have protected you when it mattered. I should have. Suddenly, a flash of headlights cut through the night, creating an ominous backdrop that froze time for a heartbeat. They're coming! Carter yelled, tugging on my arm, while fear ignited in my stomach like a fire. Worm, not them. I can't let them take you again. Max pleaded, desperation spilling from every line of his face. The headlights illuminated Nathan, strolling down the street behind an imposing figure whose features remained cloaked in shadow. Nathan's expression displayed victory, a chilling smirk like he was somehow one step ahead. Looks like the family has finally reunited, he called out tauntingly, his words dripping with malice. And, oh, we have guests. In that split second, I felt the ground beneath me shift, a notch of reality that trembled beneath the weight of impending dread. The neatly stitched patchwork of my life that I had so carefully crafted began to unravel, thread by thread. I couldn't be dragged into the chaos again, not with Carter by my side, not after we had fought so hard. But as Nathan approached, flanked by a looming figure ready to unveil secrets meant only for the descendants of blood, the truth entwined with the dread, I was losing everything once again. Run! I screamed, adrenaline coursing through my veins as I clutched Carter and pushed her toward Max. You have to get her out of here. But the shadows had descended, and the night opened its maw, ready to swallow us whole, ready to reveal the truth that lingered just beyond the light, waiting to shatter the very foundation of everything I thought I had escaped. I stood there, torn between the past that clawed at my heels and the present that burned into focus with every heartbeat. Tessa! Nathan's voice echoed, dripping with venomous familiarity. Have you forgotten what family means? It was a line drawn in the sand, a declaration of war disguised as concern. How could anyone wield that phrase as a weapon, when family had been the very thing that nearly destroyed me? Carter's eyes widened with fear, her grip tightening on my hand as if to anchor me against the tide threatening to drown us. "We can't let him break us," she whispered, the determination in her tone igniting a spark of hope in the heavy air. "You're stronger than him," but as the headlights finally cut through the curtain of rain, illuminating the shadowy figure behind Nathan, dread pooled in my stomach. Whoever was following him was an unfathomable threat, a puzzle piece lost amidst too many pieces that had already cut deeply into my heart. "Max. I can't." My voice faltered as Nathan stepped closer, his presence looming like a storm cloud, dark and threatening. "You think hiding will save you?" Nathan taunted, his eyes glinting with malevolence. "You're running towards your past, Tessa. And this time, it will swallow you whole." I shook my head defiantly, anger blazing within me. "Let go of the mind games, Nathan. You don't own me." I squeezed Carter's hand as we prepared for the inevitable confrontation. I had to tap into every ounce of courage I possessed, every lesson learned from years spent untangling my identity from a family so entwined in darkness that light seemed a dream too distant to hold. Max's presence beside me brought a flicker of comfort. "You're not alone, Tessa," he said urgently, his gaze darting to where Nathan stood. "We can't let him control us again." Not now, but as my heart raced with newfound clarity, something within me whispered that this confrontation was inevitable. This was where our fates entwined. I was done running. A cold resolve settled in my chest as I prepared to stand my ground. "You don't get to dictate my life anymore," I declared, the trembling in my voice hardening into resolve. The shadow stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face I had tried to forget, a brother I'd lost when the family's chaos descended like a crushing wave. "This is where it ends," Nathan sneered, pointing at Carter, his voice twisting the very marrow of my bones. "Let her go, Tessa." "I won't let you," I shouted, stepping forward instinctively, the adrenaline surging through me like wildfire. "I choose my family. I choose my own path." I was no longer the girl consumed by the watchful eyes of her family, I had become the woman who forged her destiny against all odds. Carter stepped closer, the breath of someone who believed in the better side of humanity settling in the fragile space between us, wrapping around our hands like a shield. "We're not running from you anymore, Nathan," she affirmed firmly. "Your threats won't shackle us. We choose to stand for what's right." His laughter echoed through the cold night, but I sensed a shift, the realization that maybe he didn't wield the power he thought he did. This was our moment, a reckoning that could shatter his delusions and break through the scars that had stitched themselves into our very beings. Movement caught my eye, and suddenly, the tension that hung between us was shattered. The figure who had lurked in Nathan's shadow stepped forward, a familiar presence, undeniably less sinister than the others, sparking familiarity. "Stop!" a voice shouted, urgent and commanding. "We need to talk." Now, the officer stood before us, soaked from the rain but emanating a calm authority that contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of emotions around us. "This isn't over, Nathan," he said, eyeing him with fierce determination. "You've crossed a line, and it ends tonight." Did I end that instant? Everything shifted, the balance of power teetering on the edge of revelation. I couldn't comprehend the full weight of the officer's implications, but something within me shifted. The past was unspooling, and perhaps, just perhaps, my tangled reality might navigate toward a truth I had longed to need, a truth hidden amongst the lies. Nathan's smirk faltered, a flash of unpredictability sparking within him. "You think you can protect them?" he sneered, fingers curling as if grasping at shadows. "You're nothing but a pawn in a much larger game." "Then let's play," I challenged, forcing myself to meet Nathan's gaze head-on. There were no monsters hiding beneath his skin, he was merely a man with ambitions that had now spiraled into madness. "I won't let you control my choices or my future. I fought too hard for that," and in that moment of confrontation, everything crystallized, illuminating my fears, my weaknesses, and the strength that sprang forward in the name of love and loyalty. I thought of those darkest nights that had dragged on forever, of the courage it had taken to reclaim my life, and the ties that had tethered me to unspeakable pain. With everything hanging in the balance, I felt the warmth of Carter's hand, grounded yet invigorated by our shared struggles. I knew that whatever happened next, I wouldn't be trapped any longer. The shadows of my past would not define me. If there was one truth that could weave itself into the fabric of my existence, it was this: real family doesn't chain us, they liberate us. And so, I stood firmly beside Carter, ready to confront what lay ahead, determined to break free from the clutches of fear that had shadowed us for too long. "This is our story," I declared, feeling more whole than ever. "It's our choice, not yours." The storm that raged outside could not compare to the storm brewing within as I prepared for a final confrontation, a new journey that had begun long before this moment but would, for the first time, embrace the truth. With newfound resolve, I took a deep breath, anchoring my strength. I choose love over fear. I choose hope over despair. I choose my family. The world stood still in anticipation, and as I turned from Nathan to look into Carter's eyes, I knew that we were ready to embrace whatever came next, and the power of our choices would forever shape our destiny, for better or worse. The rain mingled with the fire of our fates forging ahead. And in the deep, resounding silence, it became clear, we were finally ready to fight, together. No more shadows. No more lies. Only the light shining ahead, our footsteps echoing louder with every stride. And as we stepped forward, together, the last tendrils of my past faded, revealing the road of promise ahead. For all my choices, I finally felt alive. Love was the key, and together, we would unlock the way.